Sometimes I find it difficult to put all my trust in God. Do any of you ever feel that way? I want to trust in God, but sometimes I find it a little bit more difficult to trust in Him. You might be able to relate. You might feel like I love God and I believe in God, but I still feel so uneasy about the future. When you look around, there's a lot to feel uneasy about, isn't there? There's the tension all over our country. I don't know about you, but I want to trust God. But sometimes I just want to say, God, it's difficult to trust in a God I can't see. There's a lot that I can see, right? I can see whenever my bank account goes down. I can see all the tension every time I read or watch anything in the news. God, I want to trust in you, but it's hard when I don't really see you. Or some of you might say, how can I trust in God when I did trust in God, but He didn't do what I asked Him to do? I prayed, I had faith, I believed and I trusted Him, and He could have, but He didn't. I really want to trust in God, but sometimes it's just not easy to do.
We all go through things in life that don't make sense. A friend walked out of a relationship. The company's downsizing. They don't need us anymore. Business went down. Dreams are put on hold. Sometimes it feels like we're going backwards. It's easy to live frustrated and think, God, why is this happening? But we're not going to understand everything that happens. God's ways are not our ways. He can see things that we can't see. And just because it's not fair doesn't mean that God is not in control. Your steps are being ordered by the Lord. If He allowed it to happen, He's going to bring good out of it. He promises all things work together for your good. On its own, it may not be good. It wasn't fair, you're uncomfortable, but when it all comes together, you're going to see how it works to your advantage. The difficulty, the delay, the betrayal was all instrumental in you reaching your destiny.
You can choose to trust God right now, or you can choose to trust in the systems of the world. And you got to be very careful here, because if you make a choice to trust the systems of the world, those systems may fail. But when you choose to trust God, He never fails.
Lord, help me to obey even when I don't understand. This doesn't make any sense to me, but because you're asking me to do it, and because of who you are, God, I'm choosing to put my trust in you. And this action leads us to the conclusion that you don't have to understand completely to obey immediately. You don't have to know the end of the story to turn the first page of a story and be obedient to the one who asked you.
The question that never goes away, why? And you can ask it all you want to, but it's the question that rarely gets an answer. Even Jesus said, my God, why have you forsaken me? The Bible doesn't say that God said anything back to Him. So the next thing Jesus said was, into your hands I commit my spirit. I love that.
Proverbs 3, 5 and 6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge Him. The word acknowledge comes from the Hebrew word yada, which means to know. In all your ways, know Him, and He'll make your path straight. In all your ways, you know Him. You know Him on the mountaintops, and you know Him in the valleys. When you know Him in the good times, you learn to trust Him in the bad times. How do you know God? How do you know Him? How do you know Him intimately? How do you know Him, trust Him, walk in Him? The only way that you can know Him is to be close to Him. And the way to be close to Him is to cling to Him. Not just to be close in proximity, but to hold on to and to not let go. Here's the key. In order to hold on to God, you have to let go of whatever else you were previously clinging to. In order to trust in Him, you lean not on your own understanding. Can I say for a moment, that's just hard? to tell me not to lean. I'm wired to lean on my own understanding. Some would say it's the strength that I can figure this out. But when you get to the place where you let go of your own understanding, your own plans, your own desire, your own will, your own strategy, your own place of comfort, and when you cling to one who is a rock who will never fail you, you cling to the faithfulness and the goodness of the only one who really is good, then anything else that brought you the illusion of security before fades away in the presence and the strength of the goodness and the grace and the presence of God. Don't let go. Cling to the promises of God. God, I thank you that I can cast my cares upon you because you faithfully care for me. God, I'm clinging to your truth that you will provide all of my needs according to your glorious riches in Christ Jesus. God, I thank you and praise you that you're working in all things to bring about good, God, to those who love you, who are called according to your purpose. God, I cling to your truth that you will never leave me, God. You will never forsake me, God, that when I draw near to you, God, you always draw near to me. God, thank you. You are close to the brokenhearted. God, you save those who are crushed in spirit. God, you are my refuge. You are my strength. You are my help in time of trouble. In order to cling to the goodness of God, you have to release that which you were clinging to before. Lord, help me to trust you, to cling to you, even when I don't understand. God, help me to trust you and obey even the smallest of promptings, even if they don't make sense to me. I don't know the outcome. I got no clue of the outcome. And the good news is, outcome is God's responsibility. Obedience is yours. Lord, help me to trust you, even when I don't understand. What I promise you is God will prompt you in some way. He'll invite you to trust him. And what you'll discover is that big miracles often follow simple acts of obedience.
Trust is, think about these words when I say this, it's reliance on the integrity, the strength, the ability, the surety of God. It's confidence. And here's what I really like, to rely upon or to place confidence in. To rely upon, when you rely upon something, you lean on it. Who or what are you leaning on in the midst of hard times, in the midst of lack, in the midst of hurt, in the midst of sickness and disease? Who do you lean on the most? And so we rely on him. When you say you trust him, I trust God. That means I rely on him. I trust God. That means I have confidence in his certainty. I trust God. I have confidence in his integrity. I have confidence in his strength. I have confidence in his promise.
There will be times in life that you don't understand what God is doing. Things don't make sense. Trouble, delays, closed doors, people that betrayed you, prayers that haven't been answered. It doesn't make sense now, but don't worry, one day you're going to understand. God is going to connect all the dots. He doesn't allow things that he doesn't have a purpose for. That trouble is not a surprise to God. The sickness didn't catch him off guard. The child getting off course is not going to stop his destiny. God is still on the throne. He's still ordering your steps. You can't see it right now, but behind the scenes, God is lining up things in your favor. When it's the right time, when it all comes together, it's going to work for your good. You're going to see the hand of God. You'll look back and say, if that hadn't have happened, I wouldn't have this position. If that door hadn't have closed, I wouldn't have met this person. If I hadn't have gone through that difficulty, I wouldn't have stepped into this new level.
Now, you may not feel like God is changing you or doing anything in your life because it happens just little tiny bits. And sometimes when you've got a mountain of problems, you may go 5 years and feel like you haven't changed that much at all, but really you have. It's just the devil wants you to focus on what's still wrong with you Amen? Instead of looking at how far you've come. Don't look at how far you have to go. Look at how far you've come. And don't look at what you don't have. Look around you at what you do have.
You see, Christians have a tendency sometimes to lean on their understanding instead of completely leaning on God. And so you got to decide that when it comes to trusting God, am I going to trust Him all the way, or am I going to trust Him 30% of the time and then trust something else 70% of the time? What are you giving your attention to the most? What are you giving your attention to the most? It may be because you trust it the most. And I'm sure it's so tempting to trust other things, other people, other systems. Satan is doing everything he can to try to get you to trust him. Then, more than that, he wants you to not trust God and to not need God. The root to all evil is when you no longer trust God and when you no longer rely on God and when you no longer think you need God, and now you think that money and things and people, you think that those things will serve you better than God. When you trust God, you will decide to keep your attention on that which you trust. I trust God, so I'm going to keep my attention. I'm going to tend to the Word. I trust God. I'm going to give my attention to God. I'm going to fellowship with God. I'm going to practice the presence of God. I trust God. As I trust God, I'm going to keep my mind, whose mind is stayed on Thee, because you trust Him. When you trust God enough to give your attention to Him, He says that'll keep you in perfect peace. It'll keep you in perfect peace.
You may not understand what you're going through. You could live worried, discouraged. Try a new approach. God, I don't understand it, but I trust You. I know You're in control. You're working all things for my good. So I'm not going to live upset. I'm going to stay in peace, knowing that You will get me to where I'm supposed to be.
Have you committed your cares to Him? That's why He said, cast all your care on Him, because He cares for you. Have you committed your trouble to Him? Have you committed the persecution to Him? Have you committed the lack to Him? Have you committed the relational, discord to Him? Have you committed the hurt and the brokenness and the pain to Him? Because you trust Him, you will commit your ways unto the Lord.
It's very freeing when you can say, God, I don't understand it, but I trust You. Doesn't seem fair, but I'm not going to live bitter. Had some bad breaks, disappointments, but I'm not going to go around sour. I know You're still in control and You will work out Your plan for my life.